Hello friends. In this video I'd like to discuss altered states, Samadhi, Enlightenment, Psychedelics, mystical experiences. And when I say mystical experiences, I mean kind of religious mystical experiences by mystics. And maybe dreams, lucid dreaming and things like this. This came up because of a comment on my videos. The guy was talking about these kind of things and connections. I just thought I'd say what I've heard about it. Please put your comments if you have had any mystical experiences or spiritual experiences, or any experiences you'd like to tell us about. Please put it, or tell me about. There's no one else here. Please comment, I'll be interested to hear. So if we look at, we've got this renaissance of psychedelics at the moment, and you look at what psychedelics can do, and it does seem very similar to an enlightenment experience, because enlightenment, we talk about ego death, or at least transcending the ego. Then we have the perception of time and space expanding to become, no time, and space, you expand to be the whole universe as the space changes, and a feeling of hyperrealism. So there's really real, more real than real. Now, this could be seen as an enlightenment experience, because you have an enlightenment experience and you have this kind of transcendence of the ego, or ego death, and you have, you realize that you're everything, and it's more real. Clearly, it's more real than real, because they call enlightenment awakening. The Buddha is the awakened one. So it sounds like psychedelics are just like getting enlightened. Now, the only thing is that if it was the same, then enlightened people wouldn't really be able to do much, because you can't really, if you're on psychedelics, you can't really go to the supermarket. You can try, but it's not really, you can't really function. Especially if you take the doses that you need to feel ego death and the elimination of the sense of separate self. And if an enlightened person, if it means that this is what they experience, then certainly a lot of these enlightened people that say that they're enlightened can't be enlightened, because if you take the ego seriously, and it is part of your mind that helps you to know when you're doing things, and when, like, this is your hand, a possession, this is your body, you've done this, I thought that. If none of this, if you don't have any of this, then you won't really be able to take care of the body. It's kind of an important part of the mind. And a lot of, say, Eckhart Tolle, for example, seems to be able to cope perfectly well. Now, it's possible that maybe you have some conditioning. So you've conditioned yourself to feed the right body and not try to put food in somebody else's mouth, and you've conditioned yourself to be able to behave in the outside world. And so if you have ego death, then you can still do it, because it's kind of automatic. And you're just witnessing everything as this, it will be then sort of a, no sense of space or time, no sense of separate self. You are everything. And then there's this body that's doing things pretty much as they should be done. I'm not sure whether that's true. We look at Ramana Maharshi, who was an important non-dual teacher in the 20th century, and when he had enlightenment, he was young, and I think his father died, and he lay down and just imagined what it would be like to be dead, and he had enlightenment. He just realized that he was everything. I think I'm not sure about that definition, but but then he lived for years, not taking care of the body. He lived in a cave or under a temple in Arunachala, this holy mountain, and he was covered in insects, and his hair grew long and matted, and people started taking care of him. And this does seem like it's complete ego death. And then people around him kind of looked after him and took care of him. So maybe it's possible. He does talk quite strongly about eliminating the ego. But then we've got people like Sri Ramakrishna, who said that let the rascal stay about the ego. Just let it stay, and as long as you transcend the ego and you realize that it's not what you are, it's trying to tell you that it's you, but if you realize that it isn't, there's just another function like your liver or your different parts of your body. The mind also works in this kind of way, to help you to do things. Now, so maybe it's not necessary to eliminate the ego. Maybe you can just transcend the ego and see things. You see everything as we always see things. You just realize the truth. Like you wake up from a dream, and at first I have these dreams of, I'm an English teacher, so all day I'm trying to help people to learn English, trying to get them to speak and kind of correcting them, and sometimes I have these kind of semi-nightmares that probably because I'm sick or something, I've got a fever, flu or something like that, and I have these kind of nightmares where I'm just trying to repeating the same thing again and again to the students, and then I wake up and it keeps going even though I'm awake, and I have to go to the toilet, to the bathroom, as Americans would say, to kind of break out of that. And I kind of realize, yes, no, it's not. I'm not at school. I'm not at work. I'm just in my room. And the thing I've got to do, I just go to sleep. You don't need to keep going on with all these things that you think happening. And I think that's probably what enlightenment is, rather than this complete death of the ego. Of course, I do think that it is a sense that you change the thing that you feel you are from being the separate self to being existence itself, consciousness itself. So I think that's and it's a proper change. It's not just a conceptual change. Jean Klein said it's like putting down luggage after a long journey, the relief you have. And he said you can actually feel it in the body. He worked a lot with body work, so he said it's actually a change you can feel in the body when this happens. Now, if we go on to Samadhi, so there's different types of Samadhi. The person in the comments said something about Samadhi being the same as Enlightenment. But as far as I know, it's certainly Sri Ramakrishna, Ramana Maharshi said that Samadhi isn't necessary. And I think I heard a story told by Michael James about this. He's a scholar of Ramana Maharshi, and he said that Ramana Maharshi used to tell a story that goes that there was this holy man meditating by the river Ganges, by the Ganga, and he went in, he has an assistant, and he asked the assistant to pop down to the river to get him a glass of water, and then he went into Samadhi. So Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the heaviest, deepest Samadhi, and there's no separation between subject and object. You're completely absorbed in the suchness of the moment, and there's no separation, there's no memory, there's no passage of time, because everything is just the mind is completely quieted, and the consciousness which is observing this is like in deep sleep. So there's nothing to see, so there's no passage of time. Now, when he came out of Samadhi, he called for the glass of water. It was years later, and everything had changed. The assistant had gone off and got married, and everything was different. But immediately after waking, he wanted the glass of water. And the point that Ramana Maharshi was making is that even the most powerful samadhi that you can get, that you can train yourself to do, doesn't help. You have to question, what am I? Who am I? And through self-inquiry, you realize this deep meditative states don't get you anywhere, apparently. However, Sri Ramakrishna said that samadhi is necessary to completely separate the feeling, break free from the ego and from the mind. To realize you're completely separate from the ego and the mind, you do need a complete nirvikalpa samadhi, complete break. And maybe if you don't want to spend years meditating, maybe psychedelics would be a path to that. But I think with psychedelics, people they come back, and it's back to normal after a while. So I don't know. I have heard that some people have permanent enlightenment from psychedelics, but I'm not sure about that. So talking about the meditation now. So meditation, in order to get into that state, into the nirvikalpa samadhi or other samadhi states where you do have a subject and object still, to get into that state, it takes a lot of meditation. And recently, because of people like Willoughby Britton, I think that's her name, promoting or bringing people's attention to the damage that can be done by too much meditation. Certainly very intense meditation retreats can go, sometimes they're 3 months long, and they meditate all day. And people lose touch with reality, and it can be quite terrifying. And she says that people have been traumatized. She runs a center, and it sounds a bit like what people get when they have a bad trip. It does seem like you can get into the same area with a long, consistent meditation, and it can be scary. I've heard from Brad Warner that it does happen. It's just a matter of time that you're meditating. And he does this kind of Zen meditation, Zazen Shikantasa, which is you just sit there for only not very long, 25 minutes, and you don't try to control the mind. But there's much more aggressive forms of meditation where you try to control the mind, or you're doing this noting, you observe everything very quickly. And there's people who've achieved things that I'm not even sure if I believe them. Like there's this guy, Daniel Ingram, who says he's enlightened, and he can see how reality is broken down and how everything is working now. But he also talks about how he likes magic, ritual magic, including Harry Potter magic. He likes people. So I completely lost all respect through that. Unfortunately, maybe he's got something to say. Yes, so meditation and psychedelics could be help towards a certain, maybe an understanding that might be necessary in order to break completely free. If Sri Ramakrishna says that samadhi is necessary, and you, after years and years of meditating, you still can't reach it, then, maybe there's other ways. Now, so when we go, if we look into the idea of spiritual mystics, like Santa Teresa de Avila, so Saint Teresa of Avila, or Saint Teresa of Jesus. She had very kind of visual, not just a feeling of a lot of these Christian mystics and Sufi mystics. They feel that they become one with God because they're in dualistic religion, so they're not automatically one with God. But they do get this feeling of one with God, despite the fact that they are seeing God as separate from them. They enter this union with God. But she also does talk about different levels and like a castle with different, I think castles within castles. I mean, don't quote me, but, very visual. And a lot of these Christian mystics have visuals, of images of Christ and something that you could see. It wouldn't be the same thing as kind of Samadhi. It's much more descriptive, and you'd say, oh well, that's not the same thing. But it does, if it to some degree does seem the same thing as some psychedelic use. Your visions of gods, and Bernardo Kastrup said that the period 10 years ago he was taking a lot of psychedelics from a small dose, heavier doses, and he saw celestial beings and aliens and stuff. More or less, I'm paraphrasing, but what he took from that, and they seem more real than this world. What he took from that is that our mind imposes this feeling of reality. So right now we feel the world's real, but that's just because the mind is imposing it. Now, if we look at that, we look at these kinds of hallucinations or visions. And somebody did comment in another video of mine that why is it that they always have Christians see Jesus or the Virgin Mary, and other religions see their own gods, and there's probably people who have near-death experiences and Elvis Presley comes to take them, but this would be, or Bernardo Kastrup seeing aliens. I would imagine that what these states, where we get down to this deep state, the mind is switched off, and thought doesn't work anymore, and you have this very close connection to these things that cannot be conceived of. And when you come back into reality and all your brain starts working normally again, and the mind starts working normally again, you get this you have to integrate the experience. And as you integrate it, you put it into words and concepts that you're familiar with, in the context you're familiar with. And if it was a very holy, sacred experience, this deep feeling of sacredness that you get with psychedelics, and I'm sure with mystical experiences, then it would be understood through the context that you live in or you grew up in. So it's not surprising that these people have different. It doesn't mean that it's not true. It could be true. But Bernardo Kastrup was saying that maybe it's not true, and what we can learn from this is that the feeling of reality is imposed. Now, so there's those mystical experiences. There's these psychedelic experiences, and there's Samadhi. But the thing that I actually think, I'm interested in all of these things, but I don't think that that's really what enlightenment would be, because enlightenment, and please put in comments if you want to offer a different perspective, but enlightenment, I think, would just be realizing what's actually going on right now. And it would be a matter of waking up and saying, yes. And it would be kind of like a remembering. You'd remember what's going on. So something you've always known, and you've just been like, when I wake up from these, nightmarish dreams, is you slowly realize what the reality is. But it wouldn't be a matter of changing the reality that we live in to be some sort of psychedelic world with some, I think it would just be realizing exactly what's going on now, what this actually is. And so we don't need to use these things to really do self-inquiry and to try to analyze what's here. In fact, it might be better not to. Because this is what we're trying to find out. We're not really, we're trying to, if it's a state, and I think Rupert Spira says this a lot in his talks. People say to me, I had this experience and I was kind of enlightened for 2 days and then it went away. Rupert Spira always says then it wasn't enlightenment, because if it's a state that comes and goes, then it's not the truth. The truth is what's here, and we need to explore what's here. You could make an argument, as Sri Ramakrishna did, that Samadhi or some sort of psychedelic experience, some sort of mystical experience, may be the thing that actually breaks you completely free. That you can only get a conceptual understanding up to a point. But I'm not sure. I think certainly in my journey, I've become to realize things about reality, and I've never had Samadhi. So there you go. Please, if you have another opinion about the importance of ego death, or the importance of these kind of mystical experiences, or Samadhi, or controlling the mind, how important these are, please put a comment. Swami Sarvapriyananda, another person who I respect, he says that in this meditation path, where you meditate and learn to control the mind, I mean, in yoga, it's stilling the vrittis, it's yogash, I don't remember. Anyway, is to still the movements of the mind, so that you can see reality. But what we've really got to do is to be able to live while the mind's working and while the ego's working, and just see it happening. I'll just finish with something that Klein said. Somebody asked him, do you need the character? I think they used the word character, or they didn't say separate self, but something like that. And he said, yeah, it's useful. It's useful when you buy something, buy a house, get married. You need your identity while you're doing these things. So maybe this psychedelic experience, rather than being showing us what it would be like to be enlightened, I imagine it would be showing us what it would be like when we die. Because when we die, these things will be peeled back, and we will be in this see reality as it truly is. But there we go. That was probably mixed messages, but please put a comment if you want. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.